What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Johnny. Back in here with one more reaction video, ladies and gentlemen, and I got a good one for you today. This one is titled How to Control What People Do. And it's from one of my favorite books called Propaganda, written by BERNAYS. If you have never checked out that book before, I'll be sure to link it in the description box below. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome. Get yourself on in here now. As I've said, the goal is to reach 1 million subscribers and start 1 million thought-provoking conversations. However, we're running up to that 100 million mark. I really believe we kill the narratives in the world. We're just spirits encased in human flesh, trying to figure out this thing called life, not nearly as divided as the media wants you to think. And I've also said, if you were to walk down any street in America and ask 10 people what was propaganda, 7 of them wouldn't know. And I was watching a podcast yesterday, and it was saying that Russians don't believe that their media isn't full of propaganda, and Ukrainian citizens don't believe their media is full of propaganda. And I'm positive nobody believes America is lying to us from the mainstream media. Well, the masses don't believe that. So we're going to check out a little short animated clip from How to Control What People Think and Do from the book Propaganda. If you like what you hear, share it far and wide.
Edward Bernays persuaded women to smoke. He convinced the public that bacon and eggs were the true all-American breakfast. He also facilitated the successful overthrow of a democratically elected Guatemalan president. How did one man achieve these remarkable accomplishments? The methods he used to achieve these astonishing events are explained in his book, Propaganda. What is propaganda? Propaganda nowadays is seen as a synonym for lies. It implies half-truths, selective history, bias, misleading information and other tricks. However, it can be used in a positive manner. For example, a campaign to improve public health through vaccination. When used in such a constructive way, it can be a progressive force, capable of improving and benefiting every life and every home. Specific propaganda should be seen as good or bad depending on the merit of the cause urged and the correctness of the information published. Modern propaganda is a consistent and continuing effort to create or shape events to influence public relations on an enterprise, idea or group.
And if you're watching the mainstream media right now, you see the propaganda that's going around with this Planned Parenthood stuff. You know, my first thoughts are Planned Parenthood should be able to show all of this great medical care that they've been talking about, since they do so much more than get rid of babies. My second thought is the fact that the mass of women have been convinced that throwing away their child literally means nothing. I was talking to my brother-in-law yesterday. I was like, man, a lot of women don't realize on social media they are putting an invisible box around them that is going to keep men so far away from them. And it's all because of propaganda. This system to make men dislike women and women dislike men and make women not value their children. As I say time and time again, man, every seed that's planted on earth, someone has to pay for those sins. And I got a stat from 2011 I have to find, but it's about this topic of propaganda and when it comes to these babies. So in 2011, there were 360,000 black babies aborted. In that same year, excluding abortions, there were 287,072 black deaths. So by these numbers, abortion is the leading cause of death, yet we run around saying Black Lives Matter. The propaganda is working extremely well.
Edward Bernays worked for the Woodrow Wilson administration in the First World War, using a propaganda model promoting America's war efforts as bringing democracy to Europe. After swaying the public across the world with this slogan, he set to work on employing propaganda in peacetime. Due to negative implications surrounding the word propaganda because of its use by the Germans in the war.
Ain't that the same slogan that we still be hearing? Ain't that why we was in Afghanistan for 20 years? We were bringing democracy to Afghanistan? Man, can we just leave these people alone?
He promoted the term public relations. Public relations expert is concerned with bringing an idea to the awareness of the public using modern media communications and group formations of society. They act as an advisor to their clients. Edward Bernays had an impressive list of these clients, ranging from media companies such as Time Inc., CBS and NBC, through to individuals such as the President of the United States. He was not just a propagandist. He was concerned with courses of action, policies, systems and opinions, and the securing of public support for them. His responsibilities even included discovering new markets. The most famous new market Bernays was asked to uncover was that of women smoking cigarettes in the late 1920s. Up until then, women smoking in public was seen as a social taboo. Bernays set about removing this taboo to potentially double tobacco companies' possible clientele. First, he contacted a psychoanalyst to understand the societal perceptions that dissuaded women from smoking. He found that for feminists, cigarettes were like torches of freedom that symbolised their non-conformity and freedom from male oppression. He used this information to formulate a strategy and got a group of stylish women to march in an Easter Day parade. Prior to the parade, he had told the press that a group of women's rights marchers would light torches of freedom.
It's so funny how the media has always targeted women to make them feel like they were oppressed or less than. The 22nd president of the United States, Grover Cleveland, he said, and I quote, "No sensible and logical woman would ever want to vote." And now that same Democrat Party is the champion for women's rights. And I've seen so many memes saying, these are the corporations we should support because they're paying for women to go have abortions. And my thought is, one, I thought we were tired of big corporations. But two, if I was a big corporation, it's a lot cheaper for me to pay for you to go get an abortion than it is for me to pay for your maternity leave and your doctor's appointments and for you to have to go breastfeed this during the day. I'm saving a lot of money by paying you just to go get rid of a kid. The propaganda is working so well. Like, it's hard to be mad at how efficient these corporations are with fooling the masses. They just move the carrot and the masses turn and get in line.
On his cue, the women lit up their cigarettes in front of the eager photographers. The result was press coverage in several major newspapers, including the New York Times, which helped to break the taboo against women smoking in public. The study of mass psychology has brought to light the fact that a group can have certain mental characteristics distinct from that of an individual.
You know, I can still remember when women were shunned for having baby out of wedlock. My grandfather was a fan of shotgun marriages. And now for a society that the champion single motherhood, well, it takes two to make a baby. And we know what the statistics are for children that grow up in fatherless homes. So why does society encourage a situation when we know the children will grow up in a disadvantage? Unless it's propaganda.
Learning how the masses are influenced by various factors allows us to affect change in public opinion with a fair amount of accuracy. However, propaganda will never be an exact science, in the same way psychology or sociology isn't, because they deal with humans. If you can influence leaders, you automatically influence the groups they rule or have authority over. The group mind has impulses, emotions and habits.
And that's why, man, to quote Malcolm X, the black community is the only community where the athletes, the rappers, the actors, now you can say the influencers, they all are the leaders of those communities. And while LeBron James is a great basketball player, what does that mean about him intellectually? But we have been bamboozled, to quote Malcolm X, and we're political chumps because we just fall in line. And what they say, no taxation without representation. And to see the masses of young black men and women champion, we need abortion rights. And then you turn around and complain about the genocide of slavery. Well, you're genociding yourself and you have a control over what happens now. I can't do anything about what happened 400 or 500 years ago. But I do have a say-so about what's currently going on in society. And if we don't take control to fix our situation, if we keep giving the power off to the government, The government is going to keep encouraging us to have broken families and to abort our babies. And last I checked, whether you black, white, yellow, gay, straight, everyone is tired of government overreach. You would think we would be happy to have states' rights and not have the Supreme Court control everything. But once again, propaganda is working.
rather than thoughts as such. It makes up its mind by impulsively following the example of a trusted leader or authority figure. If this is not available, the herd thinks by cliches or images that stand for a group of experiences or ideas. An old propagandist would treat the human mind as an individual machine and rely on certain stimulus, often repeated, creating a habit. Similarly, they would reiterate an idea to create conviction with individuals. For example, to advertise bacon and eggs, adverts would contain phrases along the lines of "Eat more eggs," "Bacon is good for you," and "Bacon and eggs are cheap and healthy." A new propagandist such as BERNAYS, who understands group...
And that's the same propaganda that's going with women. Support all women. Believe all women. I asked my daughter, she's in the 5th grade, and I said, "Leah, I'm going to ask you a question, baby." I said, "Are all little girls in your class nice?" She said, "No." I said, "Are all girls on your soccer team nice?" She said, "No." I said, all the girls you know, what percentage of them would you say is mean?" And she said, "If I had to tell the truth, Daddy, about 80% of the girls are mean." I said, "I don't want you to ever forget that when you grow up. Because society is saying that every girl is nice." And I grew up watching, Sister and Sister, Go Home, Roger. It was always the women were smart ones and the boys were the dumb ones. And that same divide has been created through the media. And my shades are off. It's all propaganda. For a society to make the mass of these women be 30, single, and childless, everyone is living their best life, yet 3 out of 5 women are on antidepressant pills. Make it make sense.
psychology would first look at who influences eating habits. The answer is doctors and physicians. They would then suggest to these doctors and physicians to publicly state that eating bacon and eggs is good for you. The propagandist knows that a large number of people will follow the advice of their doctor due to the psychological...
The same propagandist that's pushing body positivity. And doctors ain't telling people that they obese, that they need to get in shape. And that's why we got humans left and right dropping like flies from heart disease and type 2 diabetes. What they say in a few years, 1 in 2 Americans will have type 2 diabetes. Because the doctors ain't even looking out for you. You got to be your own doctor at this certain point. Drink water, take vitamins, exercise, stretch, do yoga. Eat healthy. Every time you go in a store, man, grab a bottle and read the label. If you can't pronounce what's on the back of whatever you purchasing, Google it, type it in. And if it looks like something that should not be in your body, put it back down and keep it moving.
Logical relationship between a person and their doctor. A doctor signifies health, which in turn signifies long life. BERNAYS used these exact methods of leader influence to convince the public that bacon and eggs were the true all-American breakfast. BERNAYS sold more bacon, not by telling Americans that bacon is tasty, but by asking doctors the question: is it more healthy to eat a hearty breakfast or a skimpy breakfast? His advertisements then said, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend a hearty breakfast like this one, with a photo of bacon and eggs. An old advertiser would try to persuade an individual to buy an item immediately. For example, "Buy this piano, now!" Using reiteration and emphasis directed upon the individual, the advertiser tries to break down sales resistance. A new advertiser would, instead of directly penetrating sales resistance, try to remove it by creating circumstances that will swing emotional currents that will build.
When I worked at AT&T, that was when the iPhone 3G had just came out. So the Android Evo was just about to release. So these were the only really 2 smartphones outside of BlackBerry and Palm Centrals at the time. And we had a slogan inside of AT&T because if you remember, AT&T was exclusively the only carrier that had the iPhone for a number of years. And our slogan was, everyone needs an iPhone, just they don't know it yet. So whether you got a 12-year-old kid walking in here or an 85-year-old grandma, sell them an iPhone. Reason was accessory quotas. AppleCare itself was $100. So if you can hit them with AppleCare, you can hit them with a $69.99 OtterBox. You could put a $30 car charger in there. You got $200 in accessories on top of that. So everything is marketing. Everything is strategic. And if you're not aware of how you're being attacked the moment you walk through some doors at a cell phone store, at a car dealership, or a grocery store, Then you'll be hit by the lights and the colors, and before you know it, your money has been took out of your pocket, and you're standing there saying, what happened? I got all this stuff that I didn't need.
Purchaser demand. For example, a new advertiser when selling a piano would try to develop acceptance of the idea of a music room in a house, perhaps by arranging an exhibition of music rooms by well-known designers, inviting key people of influence with regards to buying habits, i.e. famous musicians. The music room will be accepted, and people with a music room will naturally think of buying a piano, believing it comes as their own idea. Instead of saying to the purchaser, please buy a piano, they have caused the purchaser to say, please sell me a piano. All these methods and techniques were used for BERNAYS' most extreme propaganda campaign, the overthrow of the Guatemalan government. The government had introduced labour laws that allowed workers to strike if their demand for higher wages were not met. The United Fruit Company had been the largest landowner and employer in Guatemala for several years, and these laws would affect their profits. Edward BERNAYS was hired by the United Fruit Company to persuade Americans that the then Guatemalan president, Jacobo Arbenz, was a communist, when in reality he was a liberal capitalist. BERNAYS ran an intensive campaign of misinformation to portray the company as the victim of the government for several years.
The same way we ran a nice 4-year campaign saying Donald Trump was a white supremacist, alt-right, ultra MAGA guy. Propaganda works extremely well. I mean, but you remember they lifted Bernie up for a while. What was that, about 2016, when it looked like Bernie was going to beat Hillary, and then he just got smacked out of nowhere? See, this propaganda, they know what the masses like, and they'll dangle a little carrot so far in front of your face and then snatch it out and say, now you got to fall in line. So hopefully going forward with 2024 and 2028 and these next election cycles that keep coming up, individually we can keep waking up our family members and our friends to research for yourself, think for yourself. Because the media doesn't care about any of us, black, white, brown, no matter where you're from, whether you got $2 or you got $100 million. You're not important. And if we, the people, can start respecting each other and having agreeable disagreements, then we can move forward and prosperous in this society. But if we keep falling for the banana in the tailpipe that the government is showing us, then eventually public executions and lynchings will be back here, and we'll be cheering for them, aka getting them kicked off Twitter or social media. We don't see the trends coming.
Including taking American journalists to Guatemala and arranging for them to interview only those who opposed Arbenz. BERNAYS' involvement led to US President Eisenhower to intervene, and ultimately Arbenz was overthrown in a US-sponsored coup designed to make the world safe for large US corporations.
And it's a slippery slope that's happening because, just my thought, and you can let me know what you think, that eventually Martin Luther King will be replaced with the image of George Floyd, because what did B. Simone say? Martin Luther King isn't a good man and he cheated on his wife and X, Y, and Z. But it's propaganda. So you're going to use your cause to get this far, and then we don't need you anymore. So we're going to use some more propaganda, and we're going to use some more propaganda. And we're just going to keep advancing our cause. And if you haven't watched the clips of the KGB agents back in 1985 talk about ideological subversion, you need to check it out, because this is like a crazy story that we're all in, and you have the power to be the glitch in the matrix just like I do. And this information is available to all Americans, not just Americans, across the world. So wake up from the propaganda, shake your neighbor, shake your friend, and say, hey, start reading. But the book will be linked in the description. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, be the change you wish to see in this world. And once again, wake up from the masses of propaganda. Until next time, we out.